to Anfield, the scene of the 246th Merseyside derby, which will be kicking off in just less than 2 hours' time. Very much the calm before the storm at the moment. Beautiful blue sky, not a cloud in it as I peer over the Sir Kenny Dalglish stand, and just a few media personnel really in the ground at the moment. Maybe one or two fans just starting to appear up onto the concourse and starting to take their seats and maybe drinking it in for the next couple of hours. Well, welcome to the programme. You can drink it in with us right here. If you're not going to the game, if you're on the way to the game, make sure you have us on. This is where you'll get the proper Merseyside football build-up to the Merseyside derby. And while it's quiet here at the moment, it's going to be awash with excitement soon, isn't it? Nerves, maybe, passion, a determination to beat the local rival. Fans always will be at the centre of the Merseyside derby, and we've got a red and a blue. Abby Rudkin from Redmen TV, LFC TV and others is in the red corner, and we start in the blue corner with Ben Winstanley from A View from the Bullens. And where else to start from where we left off with a chaotic ending to February's derby at Goodison. I asked if the emotion from that match will carry over into tonight.
Well, definitely. I think there's obviously the way it ended, and obviously how it ended with Decore getting sent off, Curtis Jones getting sent off. There was absolute pandemonium at the end. You know, the way James Tarkowski smashed that in the 98th minute, it genuinely did feel like a win for us. And I understand that the Reds will be saying, oh, you know, you're celebrating the draw. But it wasn't just celebrating the draw. It was the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. And, you know, imagine them lot, and I'm looking at Abigail here, you know, imagine coming onto here having lost that last Goodison Park Merseyside derby. It was, do you know what, Everton played really well on the night, and I think that I really enjoy that kind of passion and the fight, and I love seeing that derby at the end. That's what we used to witness in the early 2000s, and obviously, you know, the Gerrard tackles, and you had, like, you know, the Yobo, Phil Neville tackles back in the day, Kevin Morales on Suarez. We haven't had, it's been quite friendly recently, to be fair, and then that all kicked off at the end. And I think, you know, in all due course, I think Anfield are going to give some of our players a very welcome reception, to be quite honest with you.
I imagine Decore might be in for a particularly welcome reception. Abby, on the way that derby ended, and we joked there about celebrating it like a win. What did you make of all that, and Everton celebrating in the way they did? Did the celebrations bother you at all?
I know we said as much, like we kept saying, oh, it's only a draw, but it felt like a loss for us. It did feel like a win for you. I know we both got a point, but it did feel as though that would have been a massive win for us. Before that goal went in, I was just sat there thinking, this is massive, because we didn't play that well, and we hadn't for a few games. We probably haven't played to our very best since we drew 2-2 to United at Anfield. So I think it was 2-2, and it just felt as though that was sort of the performance of, right, you grinded out a result there in a really difficult game, you know, it's a derby, and then that goal goes in, and it's just a sickener. And I think the scenes at the end of it, especially Curtis Jones, that sort of like Liverpool lad, you know what I mean, you could see what it meant to him, obviously arguing with Decore, but you know what, I don't begrudge Decore celebrating like that in front of our fans. I think if Curtis would have done it in front of the Evertonians, if we'd have, let's say, maybe we wouldn't have done it for a draw, but we might have done it for a winner, I think I wouldn't have complained if it was the other way around. And I feel like they both sort of deserved what they got, and I don't know, I think
all teams do it, don't they? I think, to be fair, didn't McAllister sort of tap the badge in front of the Everton fans in the first half when he celebrated?
Yeah, he probably did.
They all do it, is my point.
He probably did, but I just feel as though bringing it back to Anfield, I feel like we might get the last laugh here, because those players are going to be very, very angry about what happened there, especially when we're going for a title.
I wanted to ask you, actually, does that fire up Liverpool even more? Because the way it ended, and the way, I mean, the temperature was at the maximum. Manager, players, the lot, obviously Arne Slot got himself sent off as well. Does that actually add more fuel to your fire going into this Merseyside derby? Yeah,
definitely. I feel like that result definitely is going to kick us into definitely trying to win it. I think when you look at the Newcastle game away, we ended up getting a draw. Kelleher makes a big mistake, and then we bring them back to Anfield, and we put in a really good performance there. I know obviously Newcastle have just beat us in the cup final, but at the end of the day, I feel like those away fixtures where you don't do that well, especially with such a solid team that we've got, I think they're looking at Everton and they're thinking, right, we're going to show you how much better quality we have. Whether that quality stays after the end of the season, but I think they're going to want to put in one big fight.
What did you make, Ben, of the reaction of... I want to ask you this in a second, actually, Abby, but Arne Slot's reaction when he comes on, he gets sent off, and all the sort of chaos that followed that equaliser and the full-time whistle. I wonder what you made of all that, because before that we'd kind of seen Liverpool as being sort of calmly, sort of almost on their way to the Premier League title. They very much still look like they are, of course, but they seemed like they were well in control of things then. And then it seemed like that was the first time, I don't know, that the tempo was kind of lost for Liverpool. Maybe there might have been one or two other examples, I'm sure Abby will tell me, but how did it make you feel to see all that going off after the full-time whistle?
It was the first time we've seen that side to Arne Slot. I think he comes across in his interviews quite cool, calm and collected. Pretty much the opposite to Jurgen Klopp, to say the least. But, since that performance and that 2-0 and that late equaliser, they've gone from the quadruple down to just going for the Premier League. Just, it is what it is. But ultimately, it kind of not derailed the season, but I think that goal was kind of like impacted them. And we've seen that side to Slot where it's just like we've seen, the VAR and Michael Oliver released the audio, and there wasn't like, it was quite aggressive pleasantries towards the officials. He was angry. He said that Michael Oliver had refereed the game. I actually thought he was poor for both sides, to be quite honest, and that's another topic to talk about, the standards of the referees in the Premier League. But yeah, it was surprising. But what do you expect? He's obviously fired up, he's passionate, he likes being the manager of Liverpool Football Club, and ultimately you don't want to concede any last minute equaliser or winner, to say the least. So it was expected, but it did surprise me, to be quite honest, because he does come across as quite a calm gentleman.
Do you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember when Everton had that goal disallowed late on against Manchester United? I think it was before COVID lockdown sort of hit in, and Carlo Ancelotti was the manager. Something very similar happened. He went onto the pitch and got himself sent off at full time. Yeah. And I remember actually a lot of Everton fans really liking that moment and enjoying it, because they thought, we've got a manager who's passionate and is going to fight for us here. And Abby, I know I know how much you love Jurgen Klopp and the type of manager that he was. I just wonder if, seeing that reaction from Slot, did you actually like that in a way?
Yeah, I think I did like it. I think it sort of made you think, right, he's really into this now. He really wants to be Liverpool manager. He's bought into it now. He's realised how big this derby is and what that means. Because at the end of the day, a draw against someone in the bottom half of the table, he probably wouldn't have put that much of a fight up to the refs. And like you've just said, I think the ref was bad for both sides, but I don't think he'd have had that reaction. I think you could see he knew what a derby is. He knew what that derby meant and how much it meant to the Evertonians and the Liverpool fans. So I was happy to see that. And like Ben just said, he is normally cool, calm and collected, and in his press conferences sometimes it just feels as though he's so mild-mannered and very politically correct and stays very within the lines. And I think for that one he was as angry as we were, and I wanted to see that. I wanted to see that he was fuming, and hopefully he carries that fume on into this game.
Now I've noticed the subtle shots both of you have been firing. Don't make me get all Michael Oliver on you and start getting me cards out. All right, because once I start I can't stop, as Michael Oliver couldn't as well in that Merseyside derby. But do you think that we'll see that kind of fiery start to this Merseyside derby as well, that we're literally going to pick up where we left off?
I think so. I really do. I think it's going to be a really, really high climax game. It's going to start aggressive. Liverpool always want to come out on the front foot at Anfield. They want to set the tone early. And in my eyes, I think Everton, if they can withstand the pressure and delay, stop Liverpool from scoring, stop them getting into there. Because if Liverpool's midfield get going, Everton are going to really struggle. And I hate saying it, but they've got world-class players everywhere. Everton have to try and unsettle the crowd, because if you get Anfield on the back foot, it's like Goodison in a way. It is very much like Goodison. They want to see front foot football, they want to see aggressive football, and if you can try and control the crowd and the narrative, Nottingham Forest did it early on. That's the only obviously league defeat. They went there, frustrated the hell out of the Liverpool fans, and came away with a great goal by Hudson-Odoi, and they come away with the only loss this season. So it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy for Everton. I think Liverpool are going to want to come off the traps. They've got a lot to prove. I think does Curtis Jones come in for that reaction? After he got sent off at the end, the Liverpool fans are going to give a hell of a lot of abuse to Decore, like you mentioned earlier. I think he knows that's coming. I speak to him, and he knows it's coming. He really does know. But all the players do that, and that is why they're Premier League footballers, that they're there to deal with the pressure. But yeah, it's going to be a fast start.
How did the players keep their heads, though? Because, I mean, it was late on, it was even after the whistle, but the heads were not kept last time. Red cards were dished out. But listen, if that happens earlier in the game, it can change the game. So, how do players sort of keep their emotions in check like that when they've proven that they overspilled them last time?
It's hard, isn't it? Because I think the players know how important this game is for Reds and Blues. I think, people from around the country talk about different derbies. This is different for me. Every single day in work, on the streets, your next door neighbours, your families. This is the family derby. Everyone's a blue or a red. That is it ultimately. And the bragging rights of the city. Everton haven't got a particularly good record at Anfield of late. But ultimately, they need to keep their heads, because it is easy to get the emotional side of things. Hypothetically speaking, if they get on the back of Decore, he leaves his studs in, leaves his foot in, missed times a tackle, your adrenaline's kicking in, your emotion, and you find yourself, your team down to 10 men. We've seen it last year. I think it was Ashley Young got sent off, 2 yellow cards in the first half. We go down to 10 men, and ultimately that cost us the game, and we went on to lose 2-0, Mo Salah scoring 2. So it does happen, and it probably will happen. I think that more so for Everton, but Liverpool haven't had that many red cards this season, to be quite honest.
I just wonder, Abby, how much the last Merseyside derby will play in Liverpool's preparations for this one, because it was a game you mentioned about Liverpool maybe not being in the greatest of form since that 2-2 draw against Manchester United. It was a game where Liverpool didn't sort of control the game as they have done many, many times this season. Do they need to make sure they do that in this game at Anfield rather than letting Everton choose how the game is going to be played, if that makes sense?
I think Slot mostly this season has sort of played a really calm first half and then's come out fighting in the second half, but I don't think you can do that in a derby. I think in the derby we've just got to come out from the traps and just be absolutely raging, to be honest. I think we need to pick off where Curtis Jones left off and be fuming, because I think that's how Liverpool carry the atmosphere sometimes. That's how we become the 12th man. Like, you think back to a few seasons ago when Arteta decided to start kicking off at Jurgen, and that just lifted the crowd massively. So sometimes you want a moment like that makes you angry, but maybe we've already had it. Maybe it happened at Goodison and we're up, because I'm going to be going in there absolutely fuming. I'm going to be at Anfield absolutely screaming my head off because of how frustrated I was from that. So I can imagine Slot's probably going to come out trying to be on the front foot as much as he can, but Moisey football and all that, you never know. You're playing very differently now, and it's a little bit more exciting for you Evertonians as well. So maybe, I mean, at the end of the day, you aren't really fighting for anything. You have managed to stay up now, so this is all you have really got to fight for, is a win in the derby. I'm just putting all my digs in now.
Is that all Everton have got to fight for, Ben?
No, we've got obviously prize money and bragging right to the city. How brilliant would it be?
Is it bragging right to the city, though, when we're getting a parade, with the Premier League?
It's not been the same this year, Phil. Injuries, Bukayo Saka going down, Roger going down early doors. It's not just a normal Premier League season. We're just wiped out.
It is just a normal Premier League season.
Okay, I don't think I need to dish out the yellow cards just yet, but we're doing okay.